think we are. I just love singing everything these days. I think I need to watch The Sound of Music. So I've had a frustrating day. So it's really a good way to top things off to be here with my co-facilitator in the grief recovery method, Miss Heather Lacey. How are you? Long time no see.
It's been a while.
Yes, Happy New Year. This is Heather's first time on this year, right?
Yeah.
Because we do take off. So what we're going to try to do is, well, we're not going to try to do it. When it's a long weekend, we're not going to post. We're going to let everybody have their time off. And then we're going to do alternating weeks after that. So Aisha's going to be the first and third, and Heather's going to be the second and fourth, right? Give or take. Because anyways, so it'll be alternating weeks, but we'll post. So thank you. I've got a little bit of frenetic energy going on here, but I am excited to see how tonight's show goes, tonight's chat. The one thing that we see when people are talking about grief these days is everybody, and I mean everybody and their uncle, and this is the way the pendulum goes. I'm glad people are talking about grief more commonly. I'm glad that people are talking about how it's okay not to be okay, or not to feel okay. But the thing is with grief, I know that in my personal experience, it can bring you, like, it can feel like your heart's in a vise and somebody's like turning it and it's going to explode. But then there's also times that bring tears to my eyes where my heart feels like joyful because it brings me to such a good memory that I had with that person. And the thing is that the challenge is that we will remember the laughs, we'll celebrate the laughs, but we won't talk about, oh, that stupid bugger did this, and still be able to laugh about that. So what I would like to talk with you tonight, Heather, is we're going to go over, because our next sessions of Grief Recovery Method are coming up starting the next weekend. We have one on a Sunday afternoon and we have one on Monday nights.
Yeah.
Correct? And
Wednesday nights.
And Wednesday nights. So the thing is that, the biggest thing, so what we're going to talk about tonight are two things. Number one, we're going to talk about personally losses that we've had that were not death, but yet caused a great grief. And the other one are deaths. And we're going to wrap this up with which ones is so, and I guess specifically to how the grief recovery method helped us process that information or those experiences. And that's what we're going to start with. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Heather. So let's start with your biggest loss that wasn't a death. Whatever you're willing to share at this time.
Yeah, I think the thing for me is that I think a lot of the losses that are not deaths in our life, and for me, this is the big thing for me, is that those are actually bigger in terms of processing. Because it's very easy to understand that a death is a loss. And so it's very easy to say, oh, this has happened and I feel terrible, and it's okay to feel terrible about this, and that's all right, and okay, and you find your way to process through it and you come out the other side and you're like, okay, that's great. For me, the harder ones to process, even though they may not be bigger losses, are the ones that you're not supposed to feel bad about, right? But you do. You feel bad. You feel bad because a bad relationship ended, or you feel bad because you moved to a different job and you really like your new job, but you miss your old job and your old friends and that kind of thing. You've changed cities, and yes, great opportunity, but you still miss what you left behind, right? But those are things that you're not supposed to be upset about. Right? You're supposed to be happy that the bad relationship's over. You're supposed to be happy that the new job is there and the old job is gone. You're supposed to be happy that you're in a new city, all of those things. So you're not allowed to, in this society, you're not supposed to express the fact that you know, you feel bad that you left that job, or you left, you know, that city, or that there's parts of that relationship that you miss, right? And I think that's the harder thing for me. And that's what allowed me with grief recovery, is that you get to look at the whole, right? You get to look at the whole relationship. You get to look at the whole thing, the person, the place, the job, whatever it is. You get to look at the whole thing and realize that there's good and bad involved, and you're allowed to feel sad about the bad stuff and happy about the good stuff. And both of those emotions are what grief is. Like, grief isn't just feeling terrible, it's the both together, right? You're just like, it's like this, it's not this, it's this, right? And that's what grief is. And I think for me, that was the biggest thing with grief recovery, is that it allowed me to recognize that, and to be able to tell myself that it's okay to feel bad about those small things, right? And that, because I think it's easy to process the big stuff to a certain extent, and it's not easy, but it's recognizable. And so it's easy to say, I need help with this because I'm grieving this. I've lost this major person in my life. I've lost this major, whatever it is, but it's a big thing. Whereas the little things, you don't feel like you're supposed to say anything. You don't feel like you're supposed to feel anything negative. You're only supposed to feel happy. You're only supposed to feel good about something. And I think that for me was the biggest thing with grief recovery. So I don't think for me it was about one.
So do you have an example? Because I mean, the one thing that we talk about, Heather would have done a seminar last week on the grief recovery method. And one of the things that we talk about is the backpack. And that every time we have a loss, or I would say an emotional event, because sometimes this can also be a really overwhelming, something really fabulous happened, and it's like, wow, I can't even deal with it. But it's really about putting those stones in the backpack, and then we haven't unpacked that stone. Right. And maybe that stone is now a bigger rock, and then maybe it's a brick. And so,
exactly.
So do you have an
and I think for me, one of the big ones was changing jobs, right? I've done that a few times, and I've always loved the jobs I've had, and I've always left by choice. But it doesn't mean I wasn't sad to leave, right? And I think that was the big thing, was that, you know, when I went from the corporate world to the theater world, I was happy to go to the theater world because it was something I really, really wanted to do, but I really missed the corporate people that I worked with, and the job that I was doing there was, you know, I was good at it, and, you know, that kind of thing, right? And then when I shifted from kids theater to music, again, I loved what I was doing in both places, but I needed to shift and make that move. And now I've shifted from the theater and our entertainment world to the holistic healthcare world, right? And again, it's always been my choice to change the job and to change where I'm going, which is great and fabulous, and I love what I'm doing. But there is a part of you that misses that, and that grieves that loss, right? And I think for me, that was one of the key ones for me, is that job change that happens, again, by choice, completely voluntary, what we call a voluntary loss. But again, you're not supposed to say, it's like, oh, you know, it's like everybody's like, oh, I'm so excited, you're moving on to something new, and it's something good, and it's something great, and you're like, yeah, I'm excited too, but I really miss those people back there. It's like, and you're not supposed to say that, right? And I think this has given me the freedom to realize that it's okay to miss those people. It's okay to miss those things. It's okay to say that, you know, I miss that element of whatever I was doing. And recognizing that it was time for me to change, time for me to move on, time for me to shift to something new. But, you know, realizing that it's okay to miss those people. It's okay to miss the satisfaction of a job well done. It's okay to miss all of those elements of the previous jobs. And even now, like, I don't have to say that I don't miss the job I had 4 jobs ago. I do. I wouldn't go back,
Mhm.
But I miss that, right? Like I do miss that. And I relish the times that I had there. And I'm grateful for it. But I do miss it sometimes, right? I miss the people because
Mhm.
most of them I kept in touch with some for a while, but some I'm no longer in touch with, right? And you do miss that. So,
Mhm. Well, because I think this brings up a really, really important part, especially when it's a job transfer.
yes,
So because how rare is it for people to take a month off in between positions?
right.
So you don't get time to actually decompress from this job to
No,
prepare for this job.
yeah.
Or from this work. Now you can have all the excitement of the new, but it doesn't mean it's like, I can remember when I worked I went to the Bahamas. And I was craving, as I would say, I would really love to just have a beer with somebody where I don't have to explain my whole story. And
Right.
this is where we get comfortable in a lot of, and we know each other, and we've worked together. We've got the one thing that I love about the kind of work that I was doing is the project based, we're implementing a software system, and that's hectic as heck. So you really get into a lot of bonding where you're making solutions where there aren't any, or
Yeah.
and you have that kind of trial by fire that we all do as human, because it's like, so when you find a group that you can actually work really well with, it almost doesn't matter what you do. It's the fact of true teamwork is
Yeah.
amazing to be around. And again, so to back up that, one of the things that I really loved was I was part of an insurance company that was being sold at the time. And we all knew who was going to be gone with this new iteration, because they weren't necessarily looking for people that, anyways, that doesn't matter. But that doesn't take away the fact that all my friends were there. And, I was excited to go on to something new, but we had our CEO at the time had us in a manager's meeting at one point and said, you know what? Here's the opportunity you have. They think this is a write-off. Go out there and do whatever you can dream of. So it's not like, when you're in a corporate structure, being able to just go out and throw spaghetti at the wall and see what works and practice and how that can help you down the line when it comes to, so there's all these different things that go into the position that we're with. And that's the one thing that he said, is that he had worked in all these different organizations, and he said the teamwork here, the way you guys gel, the way everybody works together for a common outcome, not saying that there's not egos involved, but that's also, it's wonderful when you can get the impossible done, just to get into the theater, to dream the impossible dream. Yes, I'm still blowing off some steam from today. So I love that example that you gave, because it is a voluntary loss. We are moving on up, and we are told, because this is the other part that I have when it comes to positions at work or positions at all. A barista can set the tone for the rest of the day, or the person that's serving your coffee at Tim Hortons.
Yep.
Okay.
I miss Anna. She's not there anymore, so I miss her. Oh.
And one of my first, I used to have psychiatrists come and tell me their problems when I worked at Colonel's. That was one of my first, and I knew everybody. I knew, and it was like I could talk really fast, and it's like, oh, so how you doing, and how's that? And people would come and show me pictures of their babies, and that's really it. It's relationship building, and that's what we do. And I think that when we get into a task-oriented world, we're taking out that human connection.
Yeah.
And that human connection is that loss, which would have been one of the things that happened with COVID. As you say, you miss Anna. She's the person that you would go and you'd walk up and that she'd have your tea ready or your coffee, triple maco taco. I don't drink coffee. And that's wonderful when you don't have to think, and it's like, oh, thank you. And then they smile at you, and it's not like you're ever going to be besties, but that's a part of your life. That's a part of your morning. Just as going to the gym may be, just as going for this bus or taking this train, right?
Yep, definitely.
So cool, that's great. And so the next one is, and I guess we'll go into the other one and then we'll come into tips, or let's just go here. What is a tip that you would give to somebody if they were going through this voluntary loss. So in other words, you're going from so how we define is the end of or change to a familiar pattern of behavior.
Yeah.
So what would be after grief recovery method? What would be your recommendation or tip for somebody that may be going through this process right now?
I would say the key is to acknowledge it, right? And if you're not comfortable acknowledging it to the people that are connected to the voluntary loss, if it's a job situation, then at least acknowledge it to yourself, right? That acknowledge that you're missing that you miss that connection. If you don't feel confident or able to express that to the people involved, at least acknowledge it to yourself. And if it's something like, moving to a new house or something like that, again, acknowledge it. Acknowledge not only the fact that it's a great thing, but acknowledge what you're losing, and recognize that it is a loss, and that, and that whatever it is that you're moving from, has given you good things, right? In the past. I'm sure it's given you bad things too, but, acknowledge what has happened and say, this has been a great thing and I really will miss it when it's gone. And I think that's key, to be able to express that. And as I said, if you can do it to the people that you're connected to, in terms of, if it's a loss that's involving people like a job move, great. And if you can't, then at least acknowledge it to yourself, either verbally or written, either way. But acknowledge, I think, is key, as opposed to ignoring the fact that it is a loss.
And I'm going to add on to that you do sort of an assessment, and you get it out of your head and you put it on paper, right? So do a pros and cons. This is what I really loved about the place. This I'm not going to miss. So that you're acknowledging the challenges, as you said. Yeah. And instead of using language like good or bad, it's like, I really enjoyed working with you. And on the other hand, so write down those pros and cons. Write down, what are my top 3 experiences at this job? And then what are my top 3 lesson learning, when the crap hits the fan and it's all going crazy? Because I think that's the other thing too, is that a lot of times when we move up the ladder, even if you're getting a promotion, because there's a lot of times when that technical person becomes the manager. So the people that they used to have lunch with, they can't necessarily have lunch with them anymore, because you're talking about different things. Your focus is different, yet you're still in the same place. So the thing is, there is to really be able to, what did I love best about being, especially if you're going from, I'm not meaning this in any, there's a lot more worker bees than there are the queen in the hive, right?
Yes.
I love organizing stuff. And I don't have to be the queen of the castle. I like to be involved with the queen to say, what is your intention for the outcome of this? But I don't care if I'm in shorts with dirt up to here, because it's just like washing dishes to me. When it's finished, I get to see the finished product. And organized and, that kind of stuff. I love that. And it's also I'm not a maintenance kind of person. So this can also be a way to find out more about yourself, right? Because sometimes we get to become managers and that doesn't really suit our heart. So again, having the pros and cons there is one of the things, and get it out of your head, get it on paper. Because the next part I would offer as a suggestion would be, are those people, have you on a regular basis, are you telling those people you enjoy working with them? Are you acknowledging what you like best about, a day in the life? When you solve a problem, are you doing high fives? Are you celebrating those small wins, right? Or big wins, whatever it is. But more importantly, is there people that I need to speak to? Because no matter what, if we're not spending our day-to-day with those people, we're never going to have the same kind of relationship.
Yeah.
That's just it. So have you said to those people, I've really enjoyed working with you. I really enjoyed you know, and it's sort of like if you're in a management position, it's sort of like, you know, when you're doing a performance review, who is it that I want to acknowledge? And who is it that I even want to say, man, you remember that? Ugh, and have a good laugh about it, right? So that's what I would add to that. So moving on to the commonly associated with loss, and we're going to talk about deaths. So the most profound death, loss that you've had, and what was, and I would say, what was something that you did pre-GRM and after GRM, and if there's a difference? Well, obviously there's a huge difference, but.
Well, there is a difference. Again, for me, it's the bigger differences in the non-death losses, because death was never a strange thing, right? And never a taboo thing. So
the emotional component of it, though, like.
But again, with death, we were allowed to express those emotions, and we are allowed to release those emotions. Whereas with everything else, I would have been allowed to, but I just didn't think I could, right? And so yes, there's a difference after GRM, because it does give you a process for being able to do those and being able to go back and look at things as a whole. But for me, that process isn't hugely different in terms of a death. The process for me is hugely different in terms of all the other types of losses, right? So
what would your ritual be around a death? Do you have a family ritual? What kind of thing do you have that's allowed you this freedom of emotional?
For me, the thing that's most important for me with a death, certainly of someone who's important to me, is to be able to hopefully go to the funeral in some fashion. And if I can't physically be there, then to actually, you know, sit and go through that process of a funeral myself, right? Because there were some funerals that I couldn't attend when I was younger, because I was at school or whatnot, at university, college, and couldn't get back for that funeral, that kind of thing. And I did miss that, right? Being able to do that, being able to be in that collective environment for that collective grief expression, right? That to me is probably my biggest ritual with a death, to be able to do that. So
yes, I think, you know, when I talk about the number of people through my life before I found the grief recovery method, because I've always been, not unlike you, I've always been, you know, the whole end of life situation, the number of cancers of people that I know, just this whole trial by fire. And I think the interesting thing that I found was the death stuff we could talk about, but grief, we could be sad, and a lot of times we would joke a lot more than actually welcome a good cry. And this is something that I noticed in hindsight, because it's great that we can talk about it, but it's like, you know, being able to deliver a eulogy is, I think, one of the greatest things that we can do, where we can help other people share the love of the person that were there. Because I know there's lots of people now, the terminology is really a celebration of life and stuff like that. But if you're going, and the stories about the people, I just went to a service where I know the daughter, I didn't know anybody else in the family. And by the end of that service, I knew that man. Yeah. I knew how much he loved people. I knew that he was a man of few words, but lots of action. And I didn't hear that from just one person. I heard it from all aspects of his life. Yeah. So that's why I love talking about eulogies, or giving a eulogy, or even when somebody talks about a loss, you know, a death, if I knew that person, I would immediately share what I loved about them. Even
Yeah.
if it was, a small time, a one time, again, somebody's father who gave me all these tips for gardening. And I love that. So every day and in every way, when I'm up at a garden, he's going to be in my thought and in my heart because
Yep.
he gave me those tips. And I think that those are the things that we can do that keep people alive, like Coco, right? In Coco, they
Yep.
talk about if we don't talk about this person, that's when they're gone, right? When we
Yes.
can't share stories of like, and this is why as we get older too, we understand that when our grandparents or our great aunts were like, oh, and so and so, my friend back here, and they would tell you a story of why they're doing something.
Right.
Listen to those stories. There's gold in those stories because it is all about a memory. And I
Yep.
know that a lot more people are getting to the point where, they are being called, a celebration of life and things like that. Yet, I still see a challenge between feeling angry. Oh, we just retired and you've gone off and died. You're okay to be pissed off, right? You're
Yeah.
okay to be, so I think that being able to process whatever emotion is there in a safe way. Like, you don't want to start taking out an axe and walking around a party with it. Probably not a good idea.
No,
And
probably about that. Definitely not a good idea.
exactly. And dropping, F-bombs all over the place is also, unless that's how they spoke, and then go for it. But it's like, I think that's the whole thing, is that it's like a soup. Like, the one thing that I found the difference for me is, as you know, last year I had that, well, now it's a year and a half ago now, where I had an important relationship and she died of a brain bleed and it was instant. And I know when I got that news, it took my knees out and I was on my knees crying in the middle of the garden, not just crying, wailing. And I let that come, and the brain fog that comes with it. This is my experience. The brain fog that comes with it. And then I just literally signed off of anything that I was doing. It's like, I'm not in a good headspace. And I let everybody know that.
Yeah.
And as you say, when we say that somebody's died, it gives us a little bit more space, right?
Yes.
Because that's an appropriate
Yeah.
thing to be sad about. But the thing that was really beautiful was that when I came to our relationship and doing that process, it made it so clean, because it's like, oh, I said everything I needed to say while she was alive. It was
Yeah.
her and we had those conversations, we talked about it all. And that, it still hurts today, to this day. I'm always going to remember when she threw me behind her while we were camping, because she thought a bear was behind us when we were out doing our business in the and again, it's laughter, because it's like, she literally pulled me, and then after, like the next day, we've been laughing about that ever since, and that happened like 30 years ago, because it's just stupid. And she goes, well, what kind of friend am I sacrificed you to the bear when it was probably a raccoon. So being able to acknowledge those times of joy, and also know that there was nothing that was left unsaid. There was no hopes, dreams, or expectations. We had already dealt with that in real life.
Yeah.
And that is a blessing in itself. What about you? Anything to
It
add
is.
here?
It is. I was going to say, and that is fabulous and great. And yes, recently I had a friend die, and I was going to sit down and do the process. And I was like, I sat there and I looked at the paper and I'm like, there's nothing for me to say, because even though I hadn't seen him in quite some time, I'd already said everything I ever needed to say to him. And I will miss him, and I'm sorry that I don't get to see him, and I'm sorry I don't get to see him perform, and all of those things, but I've already said everything I needed to say to him. And that was a great kind of feeling, and knowing that. The thing is that that's rare. That's very rare. And I think that's, for me, that's the benefit of something like GRM, is to be able to take a look at that and say, is there things that I haven't said or done? Do I still have hopes, expectations that haven't been met within that relationship? Be it a living relationship or with someone who's died. But I think that's, to me, that's the great benefit of GRM, is to be able to do that and to be able to look at that. And I think you're right, like to be able to spend those moments to say, especially if it's somebody who has died, that, you know, this is the good and this is the, you know, this is where I'm angry, this is where I'm upset, this is where I'm happy about, da, 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 and to be able to process that all together, rather than just looking at one side of it and not acknowledging the other side, right? Because no relationship is perfect.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly. And see, even this brings, and I do want to close up. The last part is going to be the biggest surprise for us, or what we've witnessed through this, through delivering the grief recovery method. I'm
gonna say,
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to start here because I want to get your reflection on this, and that
Sure.
is the number of people that assume that all the feels are going to be bad, sad, angry, mad, da, da, da.
Yeah.
And watching, and I'm getting chills right now, my dear friend Heather, watching those people have those moments of like, oh, and you know what I really loved about them? Do you know what? I don't think I appreciated this as much as I do right now. And of course, you know why. And that's one of Heather's, anyway. So I'm just going to leave that there, that's the most beautiful thing that I get to witness, is when we remember that life was better with them than we allowed, because we're focused on those niggly little, oh, this really pissed me off, instead of going, yeah, but how much love and joy. So
exactly. And I think we've been blessed in that fashion, and we've seen a lot of people that have had that kind of realization, and myself included. One of the first relationships I did was, I had dealt with a lot of the negative stuff from that relationship, and realized in doing the process with GRM that I had never acknowledged the positive stuff of that relationship, and that was what made the final kind of release. And I think for me, that's the best thing about this process is, and the most surprising thing sometimes about the process, is just seeing that release that people get when they go through the process. And even if, like myself, when I first did it, not really believing all the way through that you were going to get a release that was going to be meaningful, right? Not really actually expecting to find something that's like, is this really gonna work? I don't know if this is really gonna work. And the first time I went through the process, I was like that right up until the very end. And then when I did the final step, I was like, oh my God, this is like just the release of that emotion of pressure, that, you know, it's that uncork the tea kettle valve, right? And that was the most surprising thing for me. And that's one of the most, you know, yes, being able to witness those great moments is wonderful. But to me, it's that moment, and sometimes it's early in the process and sometimes it's at the end of the process, but it's that moment when the person who's doing the process realizes that there is a release. There is a release valve that we can control, and we can turn it on or off. We can stop it and plug it up, or we can open it up and have that release and give us the space for more emotions and give us the space to process those emotions, or we can stop it. It's our control. And I think, to me, that's one of the great things about watching people go through that process, is that there's always that moment. There's always that one moment where you see it in their face and they're like, click, I can control this. I get to say what's happening and where, you know, I get to process my feelings.
Yeah, exactly. And that's even in some of the feedback on a personal, like in one of the one-on-ones that I did, that, you know, she kept coming up with against challenges. And then it's like, oh, well, there's this huge chunk of my childhood that I never acknowledged. And then all of a sudden, and it's not going to be something, the mind is so amazing, you know, the nervous system. And then we add things like, you know, big T, small t trauma. Again, just like you were saying, it's okay when somebody dies. We have that, you know, when it comes to trauma, a lot of times we look at it and go, well, so my mom wasn't a big hugger. That's okay. Well, but if you needed hugs, that little Heather, that little Gwenda still needed hugs. It's got nothing to do with the mother or the father that was doing the best that they can, but that's usually something that comes out of our mouth, right? So, and you know, the other challenge that we face is when we have a family, we lump all our family's feelings are all like this. So it's, you know, I think it's, as we say, the unpacking of that backpack and, oh, excuse me. And the joy of, as you say, like that one woman who said, one of the responses at the end was, I like myself now.
Yeah.
Because we don't realize, Prince Harry put it really well, and I'm not getting into the whole Harry, all this stuff, but what he was talking about with grief, he goes, exactly. And again, it's like the Andrew Garfield. It's like, if I cry, it's because there's so much love. And, you know, and this is where I am, but he talked about how, you know, and he's worked with the Invictus Games, post-traumatic stress, veterans. He's been going through his own journey. Whatever anybody has to say, it's his journey, it's his interpretation. It's his experience. And basically what he said was wiping off the windshield, right? Is you've got to be able to get that as clear as possible, because we don't even realize how many things are from your example. Heather always brings joy to my heart, because it was like, I was so angry with this that I forgot about the love.
Yeah.
And so really it's just about getting back to love. Right? It's getting back to love and loving ourselves, to know that we're going to feel things deeper, but a lot cleaner, right? So, you know, because the interesting thing with that friendship that was important for me was that was just after, like, my aunt and uncle died within 10 days of each other. And that was really hard. Never mind watching the children who are now, you know, both parents are gone in the matter of moments right before Christmas. And, you know, it's one of those things, but it was like, at that point, it was like, this is their death. And how can I live my life in a way that I say what I need to say as much as humanly possible to those who are alive in front of me right now? And that one relationship was evidence that I was doing that I did say what I needed to say. So, any last thoughts? Here we go again. We're off on, well, we're not doing too bad. We're like only 45 minutes.
Yeah, no, I think that sums it up. As you said, we have classes coming up. We have one that starts next Sunday, and one that starts the 30th of January, and one that starts the 1st of February. So if anybody's interested, please let us know.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, set up a call. I'm going to put a link under this posting, and also on the YouTube channel. So, and if you know, the thing is, when we talk about grief and loss, end of life, if we normalize that conversation more and make it okay to feel everything. And to speak about that, then that's the best gift I think we can do for each other. So if this is something that you're thinking about, if there's been a post of mine or Heather's that you felt something, you felt like you know, maybe it's time I do something like this. Over this next week, I'm going to be posting some of the feedback that we've had from people that have taken the course with us. And again, this is a process. This is not counseling. This is not therapy. We're not going to dig around in your mess. You don't even have to talk about your mess. but you do have to be emotionally honest with yourself, right? And that's the key, is love yourself enough to admit that there's pain that you really want to do, that you're ready to do something about. So
Exactly.
it's great the beginning of the year, right? Oh, do this, get this underlying beliefs, these, limiting beliefs, all this stuff is great. But without actually looking at our life, because we're looking for, a limiting belief. Well, maybe you don't know what that is until you actually get into what your life is and has been in a generic standpoint, not in trying to be more productive or hit that goal, but
Yep.
just to be able to empty that recycle bin in your heart so we can love more.
Yep. Take a step back, right? So you can move forward.
She's profound, isn't she? Okay, so this is it. Thank you so much for us. We're down to see, that's pretty good. That's 40 minutes. I know we're going to aim for 20. We're never going to make it. Who are we
No.
kidding? So, because we
that would be like me packing light to go anywhere. Never happened.
Exactly. Or, and by the way, just to finish up, if you haven't seen Otto, go see Otto, A Man Called
Otto.
It's a beautiful movie about life, which happens to death.
Yes, about learning to live. Yes. No.
Having the courage to live.
Yeah.
And people that love you, porcupine and all.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. Anyways, I love you all. I hope to see you soon. If you have any questions, there's going to be a link below this video, and give us a call.
Yep.
What's the worst that can happen? Okay.
Exactly.
Love you all. Have a great night. Okay, bye.